Hey everybody, it's hwsteele. Today is December 3rd, 2021, which makes this the first weekly video for the month of December 2021, and it makes it the explanation video for the 3 different forecast videos that I've fairly recently uploaded to my YouTube channel here. So in these 3 videos, basically what I did was I presented a date, and then a couple of numbers, and then that was it. No explanation as to what those numbers were for, how they're a forecast, or anything like that. So I'm going to bring up a Word document here, and it's going to talk about the numbers that were given in each of the 3 videos before I actually give you the explanation. Of course, you can go back and watch these videos and verify when the video was uploaded and what the video itself says. But this is just a quick recap right here. The first video, called The Forecast, I uploaded on November 11th, 2021. And the first date that came up was November 25th, 2021. And then it said 55, and then it said some other numbers too. Then it says 5 is my favorite number, and that's actually true. That was just a statement that I was making. 5 has been my favorite number since I've been a wee lad, maybe a year or 2 old. When I first learned to count, 5 was my absolute favorite number, and has been since then. So there was nothing secretive or special about my saying that. It was just a statement of truth. Now, the next thing that came up, the date was November 16th, 2021, and then it said 2 2s. Now, keep in mind that all 3 of these dates that are given in the video, it says plus or minus a day. And that's actually true for all of the dates for all of the videos, okay? Now, the third number that was given, the third date and third number, was actually October 15th, 2021. And then the number was 392. Now, this is not an actual forecast. It is a forecast, but not really. And here's what I mean by that. The video was uploaded on November 11th, 2021, and it's talking about a date that was weeks before that in October. So quite clearly, that's not a forecast, right? Now, the thing is, the number 392 was derived with the same method that I derived these numbers from. I just used historical information that was all in the past to do that with, and then I put it in here. And I'm pretty sure that most people think I just made a mistake and meant to say November 15th, 2021. The reality is I meant to say October 15th, 2021. Now, that was the first video right there. So the second video, which was called The Forecast-More, was uploaded on November 18th, 2021, and it gave 4 sets of dates and numbers. The first one was November 23rd, 2021, so that was definitely a forecast. All of these are forecasts because they are dates that are after this number. And the number was 057. The next date was December 5th, which is actually still in the future as of the recording of this video here on the 3rd of December. The number was 99, or double 9 essentially. And then here we have November 22nd, 257, and then the 4th and final date and number given in the second video, second forecast video, was 11/25, 2021, and the numbers given were 5, 6, and 8. Now, this is the same date, 11/25, 2021, as the first forecast in the first video, where I said double 5, and then I said some other numbers too, so these are the other numbers, 6 and 8, okay? So there's actually a connection there. These are the other numbers, I just said that. Now, in the second video, I misspelled the word explanation by spelling it with an I instead of an A. It even got pointed out in the comments section that it was misspelled. Now, here's the thing. I misspelled it on purpose. On purpose for the numerological value. The numerological value of the correct spelling is 50, or 50, while the numerological value of the incorrect spelling is 58. But it was just a little something to put into the video to see if anyone would notice, and they came close to noticing. So the third video was published on November 29th, just a few days ago, and all of the dates in this video are still in the future. And the reason for publishing that third video, for putting that third one out there, is so that there would be numbers that could be looked at in the future to see if they actually turned out decently or not after this particular video that I'm recording now is released on YouTube. Now, one other thing that I want to point out to you before I get to the explanation of what these numbers are and how these forecasts are, what they're actually for, is let me scroll all the way back up here to the numbers from the first video. And the first date is 11/25, 10/15, and 11/16. So these dates are pretty far away from each other, at least a week or so, between these two, and then several weeks between these. Excuse me, between these, the middle date and forecasted numbers, and the last date and forecasted numbers. So in the second video here, I did something where I actually gave dates that were close to each other, with the exception of this one. You'll notice this is the 22nd, this is the 23rd, and this is the 25th. And look at the numbers that are forecasted for those dates. You see how the 22nd has 2, 5, and 7, while the 23rd has 0, 5, and 7. And then the 25th, which is a few days later, a couple days later, the 5's still there. The 7 has kind of morphed into 6 and 8, so to speak. And if we scroll down to this last video's forecasted numbers here, we see the 6th shows up twice, the 4th shows up once, and the 10th shows up. Now, what's interesting is the 4th and the 6th numbers, that's 2, 8, 9, and we have 1, 7, and 8 right there. So the numbers are fairly close together. The 10th here, we have 2, 3, 9. So there's some similarities between these two numbers right here, but even though it's a good 6 days away. And then the other number for the 6, 0, 2, and 9, well, those are actually a little bit less important. Doesn't mean that they won't show up, but they're less influential. Okay, so those are the numbers, the dates and the numbers. So now what I'm going to do is explain what those forecasted numbers were for, because there was some pretty interesting guesses there from the end of the world to I have no idea whatsoever. And most of the discussion talked about, is centered around the stock market in some form or fashion, which makes a lot of sense because I talk about the stock market quite a bit on this YouTube channel, usually in relationship to Gann or geometry or something along those lines. So the reality is the forecasts that were in those videos were not for the stock market, not for the economy. They were for a lottery. Those are lottery number forecasts. And of course, something that Gann did toward the end of his life was play the lottery. He won several lotteries out of Cuba, in fact. So it's something that I've been interested in on and off for quite a few years, but I figured over the last 6 to 12 months or so, I really started getting more and more into the forecasting lotteries. So specifically, the lottery that those numbers were forecasts for is one of the Texas lotteries. It's called the Daily 4, and they call it the Daily 4 because there are 4 numbers drawn. There's 0 through 9 4 different times, so that when they draw all 4 numbers, it creates a 4-digit number. So the odds of having the exact number, in this case 1586 here on December 1st, are 1 in 10,000. Now you can also play this kind of a lottery where you play what's called a box bet, and you bet that these numbers will show up but in no specific order. And since this is a 4-digit number, they can be arranged 24 different ways. So the odds of, let me bring up the calculator here, 10,000 to 1 with a box bet would actually be divided by 24, since there's 24 different possible combinations of these four numbers. So your odds are no longer 10,000 to 1, they're now about 417 to 1 that you would actually win the lottery. And as a result, the payout is significantly less. Typically, lotteries like this, like a daily 3 or a daily 4, pay out half of what the odds are. So 10,000 to 1 odds would pay out $5,000. The odds of 416 to 1 get rounded down to the closest whole hundreds number, in this case 400, and then that one's cut in half, so the payout's actually like $200. So while the winnings for these smaller lotteries, like the daily 3 or daily 4, which this one is the one I was working with here with these forecasts, is significantly smaller than something like the Powerball or whatever, but the odds are also much better that you would win it. And the reality is that when you have a lottery that has 4 separate chambers pulling numbers from 0 to 9, so that you could get all of the same numbers, like this could be all 1, 1, 1, 1, because you have 4 separate groups of 0 through 9, those kind of lotteries are actually, in my opinion, easier to forecast than something like the Powerball, where they pull 5 or 6 numbers out of a group of 50 or 60 numbers total. Obviously, the odds of winning are much better, but the math that goes into it plays out more easily when you have an actual straight number like this, in my opinion. So now let's talk about the odds of actually being able to forecast a single number. Let's say I said I expect the number 1 to show up on December 1st. How likely is that to happen? And talking about the odds, that's very, very likely to happen because there are 4 chances right here in a single drawing that the number 1 will show up. And in Texas, the daily 4 happens 4 times a day. So there's actually 4 chances times 4. So theoretically, in 2.5 drawings, the number 1 should come up. Every 2.5 drawings, all of the 10 different digits should come up. Those are the statistics. Now, like all games of chance, the lottery goes in streaks, where certain numbers will show up much more frequently for a while, and then they kind of phase out, and then they don't show up for a while, and then they kind of come back into phase, so to speak, and start showing back up again. And really, all games of chance work like that. Blackjack, roulette, poker, all the stuff, all games of chance work like that. You have to play thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of games, if not more, depending upon what the actual game is, for the statistics and odds to even out to what they mathematically are. So theoretically, just going by this one right here, the number 1 should be drawn. It was drawn right here, so it should be drawn in this drawing again. But it doesn't get drawn here, and it doesn't get drawn here, and it doesn't get drawn in the next drawing, and it doesn't get drawn in the next drawing, and it doesn't get drawn in the next drawing, and it doesn't get drawn in the next drawing. So that's an example of a number that's basically come out of phase. Theoretically, it should be showing up every 2.5 drawings. So every second or third drawing, it should be showing up statistically, but it doesn't happen like that. And we have an example here where it dries up, so to speak, and it stops showing up. If we go backwards just a little bit, we see that on the 30th, 11/30, we had it show up twice in this drawing, and then it doesn't show up, it doesn't show up, and it shows up again on the 1st. So it's showing up here more frequently than it theoretically should. On the 11/27, it shows up twice here, it shows up again here, it shows up again here, and that's statistically way more frequently than it should show up. So giving a single digit number, or just a single number, for instance the number 1, and saying it should show up on this day plus or minus a day, honestly that's not very impressive to be able to get that. Now, if you're in a streak where it's not showing up for a while and then it starts showing up again on the day that you think it should, that's a little bit impressive, but the odds are that it's not going to go very many days without showing up, at least somewhere in one of the drawings. So if you forecast two numbers that should show up, say the number 1 and the number 5, using this as an example. So we have a 1 and a 5 here, and then they don't show up there, they don't show up there, they don't show up there, or here, or here. You'll notice the 5 is not showing up either, right? The 5 showed up here in this first drawing, it showed up in the very next drawing, and then it doesn't show up for a while. So statistically, it should be showing up, but it's not. We had 2 in a row there. But then we have this whole day where we don't see a 5 at all, but then it shows back up here. And obviously forecasting 3 of the numbers would be significantly more impressive. But the forecasts that I made right here in these videos, in most cases, unless I give a double like double 5 or double 2 right here, 2 2s, they're each individual numbers. In other words, I'm not forecasting the number 392 to show up. I'm forecasting a 3, a 9, and a 2 to be in a streak where they would show up at this particular date, if that makes any sense. So if we look at this, let's go ahead and look at the date 11/25, and I forecasted double 5. So if we look at 11/25 right here, we see that on the day of 11/25, a 5 shows up. It shows up again right there. 5 shows up again right there. And it doesn't show up in this drawing. We don't see it, but the day before, we actually had a double 5 show up, 11/24, and then on 11/26, we had another double 5 show up. Obviously, they weren't together, but they were both in the drawing that showed up. And then the next date was 11/16, was 2 2s. So go down to 11/16 here. And the day of 11/16, don't have any 2s, no 2s, no 2s, no 2s. The day after, we see a 2 here, a 2 here, and there's a double 5 right there. There's a 2 there, and the day before, there's a 2, but there's no double 2. So that forecast is pretty much a bad forecast, kind of. You see what happened here is the double 2 showed up 2 days before, 2 drawing days before. Obviously, this is a Saturday. In Texas, they don't do lottery drawings on Sunday, so this is a Saturday. Sunday, no drawing, and then Monday. So instead of the day before or day after, the double 2 actually showed up 2 days before. And then the 392 right here, that was actually forecasted for October 15th, 2021, 392. And the forecast was made with hindsight information. So it wasn't a forecast, it's nothing special really, it doesn't really prove anything, but it was made with the same technique as all the other forecasts in those 3 videos. It was just old information. And the number 392 for 10/15, we get 9993 right there. So the 9 and the 3 are showing up. And then there's a 9 again, 3 showing up, and we see the day after on the 16th, we have a 9, a 3, another 3, and a 2 where it shows up. Now what's interesting is a month later, draw from this whatever conclusions you like, we have, remember the number is 392, we have 3 and 9 show up on the 15th. Let's see, there's 3 and 9 shows up again. There's a 3, there's 3, there's 3, there's 3 and 9 on the day before, the drawing before, and then 2 and 9. So a month later, the numbers are showing back up again for some reason. not as strongly, obviously. So let's look down here, the forecast more, the second video, 11/23, I had 057. So let's look at that really quickly here. 11/23, 057, and there's 057 right there on day of. And then there's a 05 day before. There's a 057 that shows up again, double 5 right there, the 24th. And there's a 0 and a 5 that shows up right there. So keep in mind that, like what I said there earlier in the video, is that I'm not forecasting 057 to show up, the number. I'm forecasting the individual digits to show up sometime around there, plus or minus a day. On the 5th of December, which is a Saturday, I think. Nope, that's a Sunday, so that won't show up. That is the 99. We can look for that on a Saturday. This Saturday coming up tomorrow, or Monday or Tuesday, something along those lines. So that's still in the future there. Then 11/22, you see the 2, 5, and 7. You see how these numbers are very similar, 2, 5, and 7, and 0, 5, and 7, and the forecasted date is only a day away. So let's look at the 22nd of November for 2, 5, and 7. 22nd, we have, there's a 7, 7 and a 2. There's a 7, 5, 2, 7 shows up again. The day before, the 20th, there's a 5 and a 0. Let's see, where is it at? 2, 5, and 7 shows up again. So this one, we never had all three of them show up together. We had the 7 and the 2, and we had the 5 and the 7, but they never showed up in the same, all three of them. And then let's see, 11/25, 5, 6, and 8, with the 5 and 8 being most important. 11/25, 5, 6, and 8. Then 5, 8, 5, 8, 5, 8 keeps showing up. There's 8 there. There's a 5 and a 6 the day after. 6 shows up there. 6 shows up there. 6, 8 shows up the day before. 6 shows up. 5 shows up. And then the last video that I did, all these dates are in the future, with the 4th being Saturday, so that's tomorrow, and those numbers are 2, 8, 9. But of course, you can reference the video there on YouTube to get these numbers, verify that I actually have the numbers that are in the videos. So anyway, that's what those numbers were. They're forecasted lottery numbers. So you can determine, you know, a lot of people are not even interested in forecasting the lottery the least bit. That's fine. It's a fun thing for me to do. So there you go. Now you have the explanation of those forecast dates and forecast numbers.